This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below.
Now, before this game starts, I want to talk about what the success of this season means for next season. And I really want to have this conversation in a way that I haven't seen it been had very much in the Cleveland Browns sports talk space. And I feel like this is a conversation not a ton of people try to go into in good faith, right? Because Deshaun Watson is extremely polarizing for extremely obvious reasons. And because that is the case, it seems like there is a group of people who cannot wait to use the success of this season, even though Deshaun Watson was a part of it, against Deshaun Watson. There also will be a group of people who are finding ways to make sure that nothing that happens this season that we see from the quarterback position, specifically from Joe Flacco, is anything that we could bring up about Deshaun Watson ever, because that might make him look bad, right? Like, we have people on both sides of this little war going on that are trying to leverage 2024 and twist it into something that leans the direction of whoever or whatever they want it to. So I am going to try to just approach the subject of expectations in 2024 in good faith, because naturally speaking, when you go 11-6 or 12-6, 11-6 or 12-5, when you have that kind of a record and you have 26% of your salary cap on IR, the natural expectation is gonna be not just high, exponentially high. But there's a caveat. There's a real caveat to that, right? Because if we were talking about the Kansas City Chiefs doing something like this, that wouldn't be that big of a deal. If we were talking about the Baltimore Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals doing something like this, it really wouldn't be that big of a deal. But the problem isn't, well, the problem is that the Browns are unsure about the quarterback position. Now, I don't think you've seen enough from Deshaun Watson to, in good faith, make a determination that he stinks. I think anybody who's made that determination already wants to make that determination, right? Like, you want to go there. You want that to be true. But there just has not been enough consecutive games in this offense with work with Kevin that we can make a definitive determination of it. I know people are going to throw in their arguments. They're going to tell me Joe Flacco jumped into this offense, even though Joe Flacco had like 10 years of experience in Kevin Stefanski's offense, learning from his mentor. It's a little bit of a different jump, but again, anybody who has made the determination that Deshaun Watson stinks based on this sample size does not want Deshaun Watson to be good. And the inverse of that is true. Anybody trying to tell you that Deshaun Watson is ready to be the MVP after what we've seen so far just wants that to be true. Because there's no evidence. There's no evidence of that either, right? What we have right here is a very unsure situation. On one hand, this is a guy who has been good in the NFL, whose last few games in the before he got injured for the season were his best few games, who still looks physically capable of being a good athlete, who still seemed physically capable of throwing some beautiful footballs, but did not do it on a consistent enough basis to make you confident that he's the same guy that was a back-to-back Pro Bowler in Houston. You've seen flashes. You just haven't seen that sustained light. On the other hand, you've seen an inconsistent quarterback who has had injury issues, who has a very unsafe play style. And look, when I say unsafe play style, I'm not saying he runs. Right? I think people reduce runs to unsafe. No, he holds the ball behind the line of scrimmage. That is a unsafe play style. Like, those are the hits that hurt him. Like, the running stuff, yeah, it's going to get you every once in a while. But most of the stuff that builds up to his injuries are the hits that he takes behind the line of scrimmage. He's also 29. It looks like the hits are finally taking his blow on his body. He's going to have to adjust his play style on some level. And again, hasn't been very consistent since he come back. That is really what the truth is. Both things in both of these hands that I represented, all those things are true. There's reason to believe that Deshaun Watson can come back next year and lead this team to 14 wins, and the Browns will be the 1 seed and win the Super Bowl next year. There is also reason to believe that Deshaun Watson going to get hurt again. We're going to be scrambling at quarterback. We're going to try to recreate the magic, and we might win 8 games. And that is why I think it's so difficult to have a real conversation about what the expectations are for 2024. Because at the quarterback position, we're unsure. Now, we also feel confident that you have enough here with the Cleveland Browns that you can get through an unsure quarterback situation. If Deshaun's healthy, like, I think if Deshaun stays healthy next year, you probably win somewhere between 10 to 13 games. Maybe you win the division. Maybe you're the 1 seed. Deshaun probably puts up decent numbers, not mind-blowing, but decent numbers, and you might make a run. Deshaun has showed the ability to make big plays, not turn the ball over. He's going to take some sacks. He might fumble it every once in a while, but he's been pretty, like, you have a plus 63 point differential with him out there. His ADOT stuff, his advanced numbers were pretty good. Like, they weren't great. They weren't mind blowing. He wasn't one of the best quarterbacks in the league or whatever, but he was fine. He was serviceable, and he was still capable of having those fourth quarter moments as we saw against Baltimore. And I think if he stays healthy, you can expect him to be fine. Also, another thing to note, he never got to play more than 3 games in a row this season. And it seemed like every game that he got hurt for an extended period of time, he was on the cusp of putting it all together. Like, I'm not exaggerating, but like, we all thought he was about to put it together after the Tennessee game. Then we find out he's hurt, and then that thing drags on for like a month. He finally gets back. Arizona game's good, and he puts together a great half of football versus one of the best defenses he could play, because the Browns have the best defense, but the best defense he can play on the road against the best team in football. And you feel like you're finally about to put this thing together, then he gets hurt. Like, if we believe in momentum as a concept, this is somebody who has not been able to stack things on top of each other because of injury. So if he was able to do that, he might be able to suggest he's going to be fine. But also, man, he got a throwing shoulder injury. And you can look at this 2 ways. He had a throwing shoulder injury and still came back and did what he did against Baltimore. And you can also look back and say, hey, he threw 14 passes after his shoulder gave out on him. Like, is that shoulder cooked now? We just got to find out. And that's why I think it's wise to just wait to see how things play out in the offseason, wait to see how things play out in training camp, to have these conversations about what the real expectations are. Because look, naturally they're going to be high. You had a great year without Nick Chubb. Just Nick Chubb being back is going to raise the expectations, let alone everybody else. But we've seen in Cleveland before where that expectation thing can become a bit of a thing to hurdle. Now, you would hope that the coaching staff, the locker room has gotten to a place where they can handle such a thing, but they got to prove that. They haven't proven that they can handle the great expectations. They kind of always have done well when things are kind of counted out against them. So they got to prove that they can handle that kind of responsibility. But yeah, I think that this year, 2024, when I'm talking about the next upcoming season, it's going to be an interesting one, right? Because if Deshaun doesn't look good, people have their ammunition to declare this thing dead. Not because of what Deshaun hasn't done, but because of what other quarterback, well, what Joe Flacco has done in a very short amount of time. On the other hand, there's a world that exists where Deshaun could play great. There's a world that could exist where Deshaun plays okay, and we spend the rest of our lives debating about how much he actually mattered to what the Browns did during that era. Right? We're already doing it. He was, 4-1 this season, and we keep debating on how important he was to that 4-1. So we're probably going to do it if he has a similar level of play, but instead of 4-1, he's like 26-12. Like, we're probably going to continue to do this. So that's why I think the expectations for next year are going to be a difficult thing to broach, because in the NFL, just because you win 10 or 11 games one year does not guarantee that you're going to improve on that the next. Things change. When you play, teams change. The schedule changes. You could regress in some areas while you improve in others, and that could all net out to you winning 12 games or 11 games again. But that doesn't necessarily reflect if the team is improved or not. But we'll see. We'll see. I think expectations for next year are going to be one of the most talked about things, and straight up, one of the most interesting topics that we have, because a lot of things are factoring into that. A lot of feelings that are about the team and about what they have going for them in 2024, and a lot of things that are about how people feel about some of the individuals on this team and what they want those individuals to achieve or not to achieve. It's going to be an interesting conversation. I think it's going to dominate the summer. But the good news is, man, we ain't got to worry about that shit yet. Because the Browns play a game right now, and they play a game next week, and they end the playoffs, and all we got to worry about right now is January. So that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Y'all have a great day. Having a better night. Peace.